Welcome to the Holy Smokes Podcast, a show about faith, friendship, fine tobacco, and drink. I'm Steve Reiter, and I am in Papa P's Smoke Shop and Lounge in Franklin, Tennessee, hanging out with the Godfather, the Pope of the Smoke, Kay Hiromine, spending a few days with he and Julie, and we just lined up a whole bunch of interviews. And I am with Tim Bisagno.
Ooh.
Did I say it right?
Yes.
Bisagno.
Nailed it.
Tim, thanks for being on.
Yeah, of course. I love this. Kay was like, dude, get in there. And I'm like, bro, I already did. Like, it was a Holy Smokes opportunity to talk about God and Holy Smokes and
what you have going on in your story.
Yeah,
So when people come here to Franklin, they'll instantly be able to listen to an episode with you and be like, Tim, oh my God, when you went through this, I can so totally identify.
Oh.
It's a great way. I can't tell you the number of people that have, after they've been on, they've had people come out of the woodwork and be like, I didn't realize that about you, Tim.
Wow.
And so...
What an honor. I honestly didn't know we were doing like my story, but thank you for that opportunity. It's a wild one, and it's multi-layered, and it's super cool because God didn't let go of me the whole time, and He's good like that.
So where'd you grow up?
Oh, wow. I grew up in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
Yeah. I stayed there till high school. I went to Baylor. Then I went to Southwest Theological Seminary in Fort Worth. I'll just go down the towns in the countries.
So did you grow up in a faith-filled home, Christian
Absolutely,
home?
absolutely. Yeah. So my dad was senior pastor of Houston's First Baptist Church. When he got there in the early 70s, there were, I believe, about 400 people that were in attendance. And when he left 30 years later, there was 22,000. And so he never set out to be a mega pastor, but some consider him the first mega pastor. This guy his name is Dr. John R. Bisagno. And this man never even went to seminary. Love that. Even though I did try that, found out it wasn't for me, but I guess he had some kind of understanding that it wasn't for him, maybe from the very beginning, but ended up getting 3 doctorates and crazy things like that later. He wrote a book. So he had a huge heart. He's been gone for about 5 years now. But he had always a huge heart for pastors. His favorite statement was, my favorite people are pastors who don't act like pastors. And
those are my favorite pastors.
Yeah, me too, 100%. And I'm one. So I'm a pastor who doesn't act like a pastor. But the beautiful thing is that really tells you a lot about him as well. He ended up writing a book, 44 books actually, but one of them was called Letters to Timothy, and it was kind of like as a perspective of how Paul would tell Timothy, look bro, here's how you do ministry, okay? And so what the book was about is telling young pastors and coaching them in essence through all the things that they need to know, but they're never taught. None of the chapters in the book were ever about things that you would learn in seminary, 100%. There was like 60 chapters or something like that, and most of them were 2 to 2.5 pages long. How to hire and fire a staff member. They don't teach you that in seminary. Sorry, they just don't. You know, all kind of things like that are super practical. So that book ended up being taught at Southwestern Theological Seminary as a primary book. So that's just sort of cool thing about him. He grew up as a musician. He left home at 15 or 16. He was the youngest man in his own band, and there were 30 and 40-year-olds, and they went on the road. And he led with a trumpet out in the front, then got saved at around 18 at Falls Creek Baptist Encampment in Oklahoma, and ended up getting saved there and walking the aisle, and felt like as he walked the aisle that not only was he getting saved, but he was committing to full-time ministry. And that all happened in that 50-foot walk. And he never looked back, and ended up, interesting thing about him, he never really thought that meant preaching per se. And he could preach the paint off the wall, by the way, later. But he would do music. He'd lead music with one hand and play his trumpet with the other for Hyman Appleman, some of these famous preachers back in the day. Then he realized, in a confident way that he was, but he he also was just run into the fire and ask questions later kind of guy. I love that about him, where he's like, I feel like I could probably preach, maybe better than that guy if I had a chance. So he set the trumpet down and started preaching, and people started just showing up to his revivals and this and that. So then he kind of went from one church in Oklahoma, built that thing up, and went to Houston and built that one up, and that was it. He stayed there for 30 years. And,
yeah. Mm-hmm. So you were a PK. What kind of PK were you? Were you a troublemaker, or were you?
100. How'd you know that?
So when I was at I worked at Focus on the Family for Dobson in total for 12 years, 15 years.
That's super cool.
I was his chief audio engineer and managed the production team at Focus. And
tells me a lot about your personality when we were sitting here.
But while I was at Focus, we had a monthly tape series called Pastor to Pastor. Eventually we moved to CDs and then online, I assume. But I was the editor for Pastor to Pastor. And I would hear all of these stories about pastors' kids and the kinds of stuff your dad was talking about in the book.
Yeah.
How to deal with, an elder that's giving you a hard time, or a group of elders, the burnout, how to recover from burnout, that kind of stuff. So the kind of stuff we were talking about. And I heard a whole lot about, just how hard it is for PKs, pastor kids. And usually they fall into one of two camps, generally. Mm-hmm. You got the ones that are super compliant, and then within that, there's, the ones that love God and follow in their parents' footsteps, or, stay in the faith. There are some that are compliant but resent it all. And then you got the ones that are just the wild child. And
that'd be me. Was not compliant.
How did your parents handle that?
I like to think of as PK as being pretty crazy with a K. And one of these days, I keep talking about it. I'm 62. I had to do something about it. But I feel like I should start like a website or something called PK Unite, and have all the pastors' kids, all the preachers' kids just get together for summer camp. I don't care how old they are. Oh my gosh, we would have so much fun. It'd be ridiculous. I guarantee the police would be called at least 4 to 5 times. So, man, the story I'm going to tell you had nothing to do with the pressure that my dad put on me, because he didn't put pressure on me.
Awesome.
Yes, it was amazing. In the midst of that, he was a great father. He was present. He never missed a football game, never missed a track meet. We went fishing on Saturdays, which, you know what happens, Super Bowl's on Sunday for every Sunday for a pastor of 22,000 members. Bro, he took us fishing. He took us water skiing in the summers on Saturdays, because that was his, quote, day off. Like, what? Who does that?
Usually pastors, their day off is on Monday, but
and how wise they can't move because they're so darn tired. At least I hope they're resting.
How wise is it, especially back then, for him to have his day off be on a Saturday with kids at home? Because if his day off is on Monday, you're in school.
I love
during
that.
the school year.
Never thought about that, Steve.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
That's really wise. To really understand, because I've heard so many stories of pastors who realized after the fact, after their kids were gone, I really screwed this up.
Yeah.
I really prioritized my family is my first ministry, and I didn't realize that until my kids were gone.
Yeah. So I'm going to insert just a little piece quickly about, I don't regret a lot. I don't live my life in regret, even though there's a lot of things on paper I should regret. I don't. One of the things I do regret is when I ended up pastoring years later here in Franklin, I had a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I wish that I would have held my 1 and 2-year-old boy more during that time. And I wish I would have wrestled with my 5-year-old son who wanted to wrestle more during that time. So if there's young pastors out there, praise God for you. I know it's tough. Love on your wife. Include her in your ministry. Include her in your home. Include her in your life. Include her in your questions. And just be present with your kids. Brothers, I'm telling you, there's one thing that I was told that I just didn't believe, and I just sort of took it as, yeah, I've heard that before, so I let it go. But that is, it doesn't last long. They're not young for very long. You don't have them for very long. And you'll never get back. Sure, you can make it up you can try, but you'll never get back the time that you have with your kids when they are young. They need you. If you look back on the psychological charts, I don't know, 3, 5, 7, it's huge development stage in their life, and they need their dad. They need their dad to be present. They need their dad to wrestle with them. They need their dad to hold them.
Read them stories at night.
Read their stories.
Yeah, take that time.
My dad used to take me and my brother to breakfast on like Tuesday mornings. He'd drop us off at school at late. Why? Because he didn't give a darn about rules. Just kind of like me. You want to know one of the greatest stories? Here's the story about my dad and my relationship with my dad. I have a ton of them. I want to write a book called Faith and Other Things I Learned from My Dad. And when I'm talking about faith, I'm talking about not just the faith, I'm talking about the act of faith, being just balls out. Don't take no for an answer. Trust at all costs and move forward. Faith. Look back over your shoulder. Did he ever let you down? No, not one single time. Did he turn screw-ups into blow-ups and into good things? Yeah, pretty much often. But here's something that he did one day. My dad, he's nuts. Listen to this. He had an Eldorado. He loved cars. An older Eldorado, 4-door. And he had a trailer hitch put on the back of an Eldorado. Okay? And he goes and buys a trailer, a used trailer. And he goes and buys 3 brand new dirt bikes at the Honda dealership without telling Tony and I. Okay? And don't forget, he's Dr. John Bisagno.
Yeah.
So he comes up to school, said, my sons have a doctor's appointment.
Mm-hmm. I love this dude.
Oh, he's the greatest.
I love this dude.
Tons of stories. Tons. That's what the book's about. All the stories. I have a doctor's appointment. So, bro, he takes us down the hallway, and we think we're maybe in trouble. We don't know what's going on. And right before he opens the door to the parking lot, he goes, close your eyes. I'm like, okay. And he takes our hands, and he takes us out about halfway into the middle of the parking lot, and he goes, open. We open our eyes, and there's 3 brand new motorcycles on the back of his trailer. And we ride. He takes us riding the rest of the day. And that was his way to say, look, the time with family, adventure, risk is highly valuable. And I want to be there with you when these things are happening. And that's what he did. So just a wonderful memory about my dad. And just, that's kind of sets your DNA. Growing up. So he didn't put much pressure on me at all to be, in the ministry, which is what I am today now, full-time for about 35 years, or actually a little bit more than that now. So the exit off of the main freeway of ministry where I ended up started for me in college, and I started using drugs, and there was this crazy drug called ecstasy, which was legal at the time. So I took a little, then I took a medium amount, then I took a lot, then I took a whole lot. And I ended up graduating from Baylor somehow in the midst of this. And I thought that surely if I can manage my outside of my life, it will manage the inside of my life. I knew taking ecstasy and cocaine and smoking pot and doing all the things that come with it. The girls, the late nights, what I ended up calling later on in life when it got even worse was 3 days of sleepless slavery, because once I started, I wasn't a very good stopper. And so often those lasted for more than not, I would be up for 3 days. So I thought that if I could manage the outside of my life by going to seminary, and by working at the largest church in Dallas and being the youth pastor for the junior high, which was still over 200 kids, surely if I did that, I wouldn't be able to use drugs. Wrong. So as a matter of fact, it ended up getting worse and worse. And, and so I ended up even dealing ecstasy. People go, man, golly, dude, that's really, it's kind of like that lukewarm picture of God must have spit you out of his mouth. I wasn't lukewarm. I was either cold or hot. I was hot as in I was in seminary. I was doing the thing, working at the church, trying to do the right thing, but my life was unmanageable. And so that was the cold part.
What were the roots of your addiction? There's an emptiness there that you're filling through the cocaine, the pot, the ecstasy, whatever else you were doing.
100%. You know what Chinese water torture is, right? Just imagine a little drop of water on your shoulder. It doesn't hurt much. It's just an occasional drop, but it sure is persistent, right? That drop on my shoulder was God's call on my life. Not my dad's call for me. I knew that this was God's call. And so when I was drinking or drugging, it silenced that voice. And it was quite successful.
Why were you running?
As long as I was drunk or high. If I wasn't drunk or high, back came the voice. You said, why were you running? Because I didn't want to serve him in the way that I thought that meant.
That looked like?
That, to me, remember preacher's kid, meant that I was going to be a preacher in a small church and then do the little skip, do the jump and work hard and go to the medium church and then do the jump and go to the big church. Like, no thanks. No thank you. I didn't want that. I didn't want to write a new sermon every week. My dad wrote 4 new sermons every single week. 4 brand new sermons every week. Sunday morning, 4 services. That's just one sermon. Sunday night, Wednesday and Monday morning men's Bible study in downtown Houston that had hundreds of men show up every Monday in downtown Houston. How did he do it? Like, you know, people say, I don't know how he did it. You know, that I don't know how he did it. Yeah. But I didn't want that.
Yeah.
Okay? So to answer your question, I was running from God's call on my life and what I perceive that as being.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if that's the way that it wanted to be, I wanted to push that off as long, as hard as I could. Here's the deal. I knew I would eventually say yes to him. What's also really interesting about my story, and I believe that it's true, I think with everybody's, I can't assert that in everybody's story, but for me, I can tell you that Jesus never stopped loving me during that time.
Yeah.
I came to him at 10, but not just love me. I'll just throw it out there. You know, maybe you'll get a few emails of like, that guy is so off, bro. But I believe that if I would have, I'm talking about my own soul, Tim's soul that's in Tim's body that Tim knows, that Tim is speaking about right now. Tim loved Jesus. I loved Jesus. I knew he was the truth. I knew he was the way. I knew he was the life. I knew that his word was inerrant. But I just didn't want to serve him in that particular way. But I still loved him, and I knew that he still loved me, that he had not left me or forsaken me. He had not relaxed his hold upon me, he says. Assuredly not. I will not leave you without support. And I know that to be, I couldn't have quoted the verse then, but I knew that that was the truth. So when I eventually got sober, it began to clean up the mess in my life of being able to respond to his voice without, you know, the whack-a-mole where you hit the thing on top of the head. Every time that little voice or that unction of the Holy Spirit would pop up in my life, I would whack it. And once I stopped whacking that sucker on the head, and it began to grow life like sprouts coming out of the ground. It turned into a beautiful forest of opportunities of seeing him move in ways that I was built, okay? At the end of the day, I'm a creative. And at the end of the day, that's how he created me, and that's what I'm still doing today. So I ended up being, I guess that's a decent transition into, if you want, and I'll stay right where we're at and not go here yet, but it eventually, sooner rather than later, I ended up doing what I call creative evangelism. I'm creative, and I love telling people about Jesus because I love seeing the lights come on, because I think that is the beginning of every step of finding who you're truly meant to be and who you truly are, is to know your Creator. And so I have spent my life creating opportunities for young people to find Jesus, just like I had, and knowing that it's the way, the truth, and the life, and I want to tell the world.
You're beaming. You're beaming. People can't see this. I'm not doing video on this one, but yeah.
Thank you.
You are to see the way you're lighting up.
Praise the Lord.
We'll get to creative evangelism a little bit, but I want to get back to what was the catalyst for going sober?
Sick and tired of being sick and tired. Here's the story. at the end of one of those 3 days of sleepless slavery that I mentioned, the party was over and the room had cleared. That was my apartment. My apartment was kind of like the place where everybody ended up being near the end of the night, or the end of the second or the third night, or all three. And I walked into the bathroom and I looked in the mirror and I heard a voice, and it said, "You're going to be dead in 3 years." And I looked right back into the mirror and I said, well, at least I'm going to party on the way out then. So I had set my nose to the wind to party on the way out if I was going to die anyway. Within an hour, I found myself on the floor of the apartment. It was around 7 a.m. Sun was coming up outside and everybody had left, and I hadn't slept or slowed down in 3 days. And the Lord reminded me, first of all, I was weeping. When I talk weeping, I'm talking tears, I'm talking snot, and I'm talking sweat. And I'm on the floor, and I'm crying out to God for the 10th of the 1,000th time. And I want to encourage anybody out there that I guarantee you've heard this voice. When you've done that favorite sin of yours, or all three favorite sins of yours, I want to encourage you to continue to ask for forgiveness for those sins. And each time, okay? Now, when you do, I'm presuming that you're going to hear that little voice in the back of your head that says, don't pray that prayer. He is so sick of hearing you pray that prayer. You know you don't mean it. Even though you think you do, you know what's going to happen. Don't do that. I want to encourage you to do that, because this particular morning, I said, God, please help me. I can't do it. And he brought back to my mind, check this out, a man that when I was 10 years old in my dad's house, got up out of his chair and stepped into the den where I was crossing through the den to go to my bedroom. And he stands up and he comes and puts both hands on my shoulders, one hand on each shoulder, and he kind of like insinuating, hey, look up here. So I look up, and this man is one of my dad's best friends, and he's a Christian psychologist, okay? By the way, he played first base for the Mets also earlier in his life. And his twin brother was a pitcher. Interesting, huh? I believe it was the Mets. So he looks at me and says, Tim, if there's ever anything that you can't tell anybody in your life, whether it's your parents or a friend, whatever, whoever it is, if you can't think you cannot tell them, I want you to know you can tell me. So I said, well, okay, I'm 10 years old. What do I do with that information? Fast forward 17 years later, in the sweat, in the blood, and the booze, like Cash says, in essence, God reminds me of Fred Minton and of the story to tell. If I need to talk to anybody, I can talk to him. I crawl over to my this is 30, I've been sober 35 years ago. So this is about 35, 36 years ago. I look up his name in my ledger, handwritten back in the day. That's the only choices we had. There he is. Cell phone, call him. He picks up. Couldn't believe it. It was like 5 a.m. there. I go, hey man, this is Tim. He goes, phew. He goes, how are you? And I said, not very good. And he says, how long do you think you've been not very good? And I said, about 7 years. And I said, I think I have a problem. And he said, well, if you think you've had a problem for about 7 years, then that's a problem. And that cut through all of the bull. Yeah. And he said, do you need to talk? And I said, yeah. And he goes, you want me to come there? Are you serious? Yes. So he flew in from Los Angeles. We meet at the Galleria. We eat late lunch at Bennigan's, and we talk for 2.5 hours. And he goes and takes a nap in his hotel room there at the Galleria and says, if you want to come back, I'll meet you back. So we have dinner again. We meet for another 2 or 3 hours. So he sets me on a course. And this funny, he says, bro, I've helped you kind of all I could right now, but I have a friend that you need to call. His name is Dr. Terry Moody. He's a Christian psychologist. And I'm like, Dr. Moody is a psychologist? Isn't that a hilarious name? I was like Dr. Butts if you're a proctologist. But so I'm like, okay. So I go back out there and I do what I call a little bit more research for about another month or two, where I'm thinking, surely I'm not that bad. So I drink and I drug and I do the thing and I call him. Then I make an appointment and I actually show up. And he helps me for about 3/4 of a year, and he turns me over to like, look, you need some ongoing help anytime you can get it. Like, you need to go to NA, Narcotics Anonymous. So I did that. Then I went into AA, and then I went into, things like that. And I've been into hundreds and hundreds of meetings, and I love AA meetings. I love NA meetings. I still get a lot out of them. Something happens that's kind of magical for an addict when he walks in those doors, and he can be real honest around other people that get it. So that's the story of how I went from the low to the medium to the high, and then, just today, I stay sober still one day at a time. Thank God, if you had a drink, I don't want that drink right now. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not saying I might not in 5 minutes, and that's okay. Like, I've given myself a gift, and maybe it'd be good for other addicts to consider such things, but I don't have to convince you that I'm never going to drink again. That's not my job. And I feel like when I might be doing that I'm really trying to snow you or convince myself, and it just gets messy for me. So I just like to know that I don't have to drink right now, and that I will put my head down. If I can put my head down, in case you didn't notice, maybe you don't know this, but I'm a very driven person.
I couldn't tell.
Okay, well, listen, here's the cool thing about here's a gift for driven people that are addicts.
Yeah.
If you can put your head down at the end of the day and know that you didn't drink or drug, if that's your deal, or masturbate if you're a pornography addict, whatever it is, man, whatever it is, that if you can put your head down at the end of the day and know that you didn't fill in the blank, you had a successful day. And for me, when I learned that I could put my head down at the end of the day, no matter what went on at the end of that day, throughout the day, where I didn't turn to drugs or alcohol, that I had a successful day. For me, that meant a lot, because that's meant all I needed to accomplish that day was to not drug or drink. And when you start putting 2 of those back to back, and then 6 of those, and then 60, and then 90 days. Holy moly, geez, that's a lot. And then a year, and then, sometimes, I don't know, success on paper looks different, I think, for everybody else. But for me, being able to do what I love, to follow my heart, to have the freedom to choose today to not drink or drug is a beautiful thing. The freedom to know that my wife loves me and respects me, and my kids do too, and my friends usually like being around me. I mean, what a great gift. And, it's the friends that I lost when I was drinking and drugging. I loved them too. I liked being around them. A lot of them were amazing. I loved them. They were great. But they all disappeared when I quit drinking and drugging. Some of it wasn't even necessarily my choice. I was advised to change my playmates and my playgrounds, which I did do, but I still missed some of them. But when we're sober and we spend a ton of time around the people that aren't, they kind of get reminded that maybe they might have an issue with their own life. And so they're going to put a little distance all by themselves. You don't really have to end up breaking it off with them, But God's given me some great friends now, and a heart that is still on the table at 62, with God directing my life and bringing new opportunities to do new things. And I'm more expectant right now, honestly, for real, no sales pitch. I'm more expectant of God moving and doing things in my life today than I've ever been in my entire life, ever. And those are the gifts that come from sobriety for me. Those are the gifts of spending time in His Word. Just no 2 ways about it. Magical things happen when you put that word in your heart in the mornings. Finding people that you can be real honest with, which is something beautiful that I have found here with Holy Smokes guys, and then just enjoying the passions that God has given you. I just didn't have time to enjoy my passions. I didn't have the money to enjoy my passions. It's funny when you quit drinking and drugging, how you find $20 at the end of in your wallet at the end of the night. That never happens.
Yeah.
When you're drinking, but when you're not drinking, you're like, look at that. There's 2 20s in my wallet right now. Oh my word.
So you get sober.
Yeah.
You said at some point you were a pastor.
Yeah.
How'd you get into that and then into creative evangelism?
Okay. So at one point I was deer hunting in Mexico, and I was just, oh boy, thrilled with watching the sun come up. And I was praying a little bit, the sun coming up. That turned into a little bit of worship. That turned into like quiet worship, right? No hands up so the deer didn't see me.
Yeah. By the way, having grown up in Wisconsin, deer hunting growing up, I would never have thought of going to Mexico for deer hunting.
Oh.
Ever.
Gosh. Well,
ever.
Dude, they're huge.
Are they?
Yeah, it's a mixture between a whitetail and a mule deer, and those boys are big.
Really?
Yeah, they're huge. And so this guy that loved my dad would take us on December 26th through January 1st for about 4 years in a row. So it was such a beautiful time. And so I'm sitting there worshiping, and I'm like, wow. So this is kind of full circle. I tell God, check this out. So remember when I said I was afraid of ministry, of what that looked like? I knew that was a thing. It wasn't like buried down in there and I didn't want to look at it. I knew that was a thing. But I wanted to make it a point to where I didn't tell God that I would do something just to get him off my back.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's good. That's smart.
I didn't want to do that. I knew I could. I probably had done it before, but I didn't want to do it. At that point, I never do. I don't want that. I don't want to tell him that unless I really, really mean it. And I really, 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 really mean it. And that morning when I saw the sun come up like that, and in the midst of that worship, I just felt his presence. And I fell in love with him again that morning. And I said, if he wanted me to pastor, that I would 100% do it. And so there wasn't a big earth-shattering movement of the skies or anything, but I said it finally, and I meant it finally. Within a week or two of that, one of my friends dies. I go and I do his funeral. He had died in a fire, and one of the fire captains had died. And so there's like 500 firemen at this thing, and there's about another 700 or 800 of Charlie's friends there. He had gotten Entrepreneur of the Year in Houston the year before, and I had the blessing to lead him to the Lord, had the blessing to do his wedding only about 2 years before that. He was a good friend, and he dies in a fire in his apartment. And one of the captains dies, like I said, trying to help rescue him. Well, I present the gospel, and I talk well of Charlie, and there's like almost 2,000 people there. And I turn it over to the pastor of the actual church where the funeral was being held. I said, hey man, I'm going to go stand back by the front door over there, and as people are leaving, and I'm just going to tell them thank you for coming. And so he does his closing prayer. And I have so many people ask me as they're leaving, they're saying, thank you for blessing, for being Charlie's friend. Thank you, this and that. But a bunch of them said, hey man, this is 2 weeks after I pray that prayer, right? In Mexico. Hey, where do you pastor? I'm like, well, I don't pastor at an actual local body, And he goes, they're like, if you did, I'd go to your church. So 2 months later, I get a phone call from a guy that I had met at a Christian young church leaders conference. It was kind of cool. And one of the cool ones, wasn't stuffy by any stretch. It was awesome. I loved it. This guy met me. I gave him my card. I met him. Well, he calls me. Hey, so I don't know if you remember meeting me, but I live in Franklin, Tennessee. We meet here in the factory. Have you ever heard of Franklin, Tennessee? Like, no. He goes, well, yes. I said, yes, I have. You heard of the factory? No. Well, it's a sweet little part of town here, and we actually have a church in the factory. It's a warehouse. There's a lot of young people, a lot of new young married families, and we're looking for a pastor. And would you consider? And I'm like, yes, I would consider. And so fast forward, I move here.
What year is this?
This was exactly, this is about 18 years ago, from 2025 backing up to 18. What is that, about 04, 05?
Yeah.
So that's
How did he find out about you?
It's a good question. So when I was at that conference, I was the creative arts pastor at a church called Ecclesia, Ecclesia, Ecclesia Houston. I helped plant that church with Chris C. back in the day. This was a bit ago. So that's how he heard of me, because I was helping Chris plant Ecclesia Houston. So that's where he heard of me, and I had a television show, so he saw me present the gospel. I had that television show for about, 10 or 12 years at that point. And so he knew I could do some form of communication, and so I guess that's all he needed. He was super desperate, to tell you the truth. Just joking. So that's what we did, and I moved my family here, and it went great. Pastoring's hard. There's no two ways about it. So after about 4 years, got them all healthy, built them up, helped get them out of debt. They were in default with the bank, and they were in trouble. They had no bylaws. I mean, like I said, I'm a creative. I'm the last person you want to hire to bring in and create structure. Okay? Yeah. But I was hired to create structure in a church that had 40 members. They had gone down from 400 to 40. And they had $300,000 in the bank in default at the bank on a loan that they had taken to do some repairs on a building they were leasing.
Wow.
Yeah, I should have asked more questions. But I'm like, all right, well, I know I'm supposed to be here. That period. I knew that, believe me. My wife knew it. And so I'm like, okay, this is either my assignment for the rest of my life or it's not. But whatever, I said yes, and I'm going to do my best while I'm here. 100%. Yeah. I don't know how long it's going to take. Forever, maybe. Am I okay with forever? Yes. It took about 4 years, and got them all healthy and et cetera, and built that church back up and turned it over to a guy here locally that pastored a church named Journey. And he needed a building, and we needed a pastor. So we tag team for just a little bit there, and I said, look, this is no 50-50. We're not co-pastors. You're the pastor. I'm here to support you. This is not a 60-40. This is a 100 you, and I'm here to support you until it feels healthy, until everything's ready for me to go. A year later, I left, and I went back into moving towards reestablishing the nonprofit that I had before I moved here to pastor a church.
And what is that nonprofit?
The name of the nonprofit is called MissionX Mission. Mm-hmm. And so I started MissionX Mission to what I jokingly, but actually truthfully, I set it up to fund my touring, Touring habit. Touring habit. What do you mean touring? Great question. I moved in. I had another one of those moments where God spoke, and I asked him, I told him I would go anywhere, be anybody, say anything, do anything, no matter what it was. My answer is yes. But when I said the part about go anywhere, by the way, I just skipped a beautiful story, and I'll keep it skipped, but I was in the midst of a beautiful worship with Jesus that I had never experienced in my entire life. The only way I can explain it is sometimes if you're in the shower and it's a really warm shower and you have the water going over you, well, this particular moment, the water in essence would be like going through you. And it wasn't water, it was love. It was flowing through me, and in the midst of that beautiful presence, I like to say the only natural response in the midst of that beauty and that light and that love and that acceptance is I will say anything, be anybody, do anything, go anywhere that you say. And he said Amsterdam to me, clear as day. And I'm like, what? And I'm thinking, wow, I totally just heard Amsterdam as clear as day. And as you know, maybe I can get verbose or wordy, but dude, when God speaks to me, when it's not Tim's thoughts or voice, he always says things very succinctly, very matter-of-factly to me, very clear and very short.
Yeah.
Amsterdam. Whoa. So I moved to Amsterdam. And that sounds simple. For me, it really was. But I think it's really important that when we ask God to speak, that when he does, we do it. We can put a lot of time and effort and read books and go to seminars and have people pray for us about how do we hear from God? How do you hear God's voice? Well, when he says it, the huge part of that is doing it. And so I want to encourage you to do that. So move to Amsterdam, hook up with these crazy people, insane people, rock and roll, avant-garde, punk rock, out of the box, rebels. There was a rock band there, and I began to serve them. The ministry was called Steiger International, Steiger. You can look them up. They're amazing. They're still in operation. They're so great. Well, part of what they did was a rock band. So I established a rock band to help open up for them. I'd never sang other than in the shower, but I just more or less yelled on key, and I had grown my hair out. I was sober. It was time to put away the penny loafers and the tidy haircut, because I had the penny loafers and the tight haircut back when I was a drug addict, which is kind of weird. But when I got sober, I was Birkenstocks and holes in my pants and long hair and patchouli. So that's the direction I went, and it was beautiful. It was a great time in my life, and started this hardcore rock band, and we did what I like to call nightclub evangelism all over the world. We opened up for No Longer Music, which was Steiger's band. They were so bad that people put their hands over their ears and said, "This is no longer music." But he was my boss, David Pierce, and cut my teeth, sleeping on the floor all over the world, eating lots of peanut butter, non-air conditioned, tour buses with no bed, sleeping literally on the benches and the floors, and I wouldn't trade it for nothing. So, yeah, just that's where I cut my teeth on creative evangelism, and reorganized the band and brought them back to America, and that's when I established MissionX Mission to fund my touring habit, because touring costs money. Yeah. And so we would get the money. We'd do 3-month tours in Poland or 11-month tours in New Zealand, and just hit it hard and not take no for an answer. It was hard. David taught me. David was the leader of Steiger. His sons are running it now. But he taught me, look, he didn't ever use these words, but in essence, you learn very clearly, look, just because you're a missionary doesn't mean you're not going to work your butt, better word, you're going to work your ass off. And you're going to get up early and you're going to stay up late if that's what it takes. You're also not going to make the excuse that you can't do it because you don't have the money. You put out excellent work. Yeah. And you work hard. And that's what we did. And he taught me that. And I still do that today. I don't stop because the money's not there. I try to be smart, but always moving forward. I think God blesses a moving car a little better than he does a parked one. And he also steers the ministry a little bit better when it's moving instead of parked and waiting. So
what are you doing now?
What am I doing now? Yeah. So we still create opportunities for young people to find Jesus, just like we did with the band, just like we did with the television show for so many years. Gave an opportunity to respond to the gospel after the end of every episode. That's mxtv.org if you guys want to check out a pretty good television show. It's still on. But today we have 4 main ministries. So the ministry, the nonprofit, is still called MissionX, just like it was back in the day. And the methods of the gospel must always change. But the message of the gospel must never change. That's what my dad taught me. And so the things that I'll mention that are our 4 ministries are all different ways, they're different methods of getting the gospel out there, but yet the message stays the same throughout. And that is that Jesus is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, that he came to earth and lived a perfect life and was sacrificed for our sins and died on the cross and rose again on the 3rd day. And if we will call him Lord, that we shall be saved. So that's the message that I spend my life getting out there. So one of the ways that we, in essence, get it out there is a ministry called asafeplaceonline.com. It's kind of interesting that we established that ministry in January of 2020.
Yeah.
We all know what happened around March of 2020. Interestingly enough, God had led us to create this ministry called A Safe Place, which eventually everybody's looking for a safe place to be, and everybody ended up being online. So it's kind of like a Chinese food restaurant that calls himself Chinese food. It's like it's that simple. I've eaten at those places and they're usually amazing. Well, that's what A Safe Place Online is. What it practically, A Safe Place Online provides a free 24/7 live ministry chat support for young women that are seeking help and hope from all around the world. For those missionary savvy people, there's something called the 1040 window. It's a longitude and longitude, right? No, latitude. It's a latitude line. It's in Asia and Africa in essence. And 70% of the world's population lives there, but only 1% of what we call, what's sometimes called Christian funding ends up going there. Here's what I was taught about Muslim and Hindu. Muslims and Hindus, I was taught, look, Tim. They're told that Jesus was a good prophet and that he was a good teacher, but they don't believe that he was God. So I went with that. That's what I was told. We have found, because that's where our ministry has set up a good footprint there now, we have learned that though they believe he was a prophet and a teacher, it's not that they don't believe he was God. We're finding they were never told that he was God, that Jesus is God, is the Son of God's Son. So all we're doing is telling them he is the Son of God. He is God, and giving them the gospel and giving them an opportunity to respond to the gospel. It's pretty simple, and we're seeing tremendous results. Tremendous. This year. I don't know when this is airing. Well, I'm sure it'll air in 2025. But so far, well, actually, I can tell you, in 2024 alone, we saw 333,228,000 first-time commitments to follow Jesus, just at A Safe Place Online. The crazy thing is that Safe Place Online never started out being a ministry for young ladies, but it's the ones that were reacting the most. It's kind of like this. If you had a field and you had a 100-pound bag of seed, and you put 50 pounds of seed into the right side of the field and 50 pounds of the seed into the left side of the field, and now you pray for rain, and rain comes, and the left side of the field, which is the woman's side of the field over there, those were the ones that were sprouting. Those were the ones that were responding. The men weren't really responding. So we're like, let's keep testing. Maybe that's a fluke. Nope, it's not a fluke. So we ended up turning A Safe Place Online from a general website to a website that reaches women. It's like, let's put gas on this fire. Let's put more seeds into the whole field, and it'll be all for the women. So ended up turning into that, which was a beautiful piece. Now, maybe what are you doing for the men? Great question, because that's what I was working out at Planet Fitness, and we were seeing hundreds of thousands of young women coming to Jesus, that had responded to the gospel, and we set them on growth paths, which I'll be happy to explain later. But I was like, I should be celebrating. I've been doing this for 33 years at that point. This should be the best day of my life. We've had overnight success after 33 years. I've always wanted to see young people come to Jesus. Jesus told me one morning, Steve, I said, I was praying, I closed my Bible, and I sat on the desk, and I just kind of did my typical, praying, maybe 3 minutes, maybe 4 or 5. In Jesus' name, amen. I'm like, it's not over. I waited. Like, I dialed, but I'm not supposed to hang up yet. And I just waited. And I thought he might say something. He didn't say anything. And I asked him something for the first time in my entire life at 59 years old. I said, what do you want me to pray for? And he said, endless opportunities and countless salvations.
Well,
Again, succinct and powerful.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'll pray for endless opportunities and countless salvations. Endless opportunities, that I can sort of imagine that, but countless salvations? What? Okay, but I love it. Let's start praying for that. Dear Jesus, I pray for endless opportunities and countless salvations. I waited. He didn't say anything. I thought, all right, that's what he wanted. So in Jesus' name, amen. 3 months later, we launched a safe place, and then 2 years later, we launched the ministry for men. Remember when I said I was at Planet Fitness and I should be celebrating this beautiful experience of overnight success after 30-something years? Well,
which is the way it works.
Yeah. You know what I heard? The dream is free. The grind is sold separately. Heard that the other day on some TV show. I'm like, yeah, man. So the hustle, they called it. So we began to hustle, and we put together a ministry for young men in the United States particularly.
Yeah.
So when I felt like I should have been celebrating, I asked God, what's wrong? What's wrong? My heart kind of hurts right now. This should be the best season of my life. And he says, because you're ignoring your heart. And I knew exactly what he meant. And that was to reach young men in America. So that's standupdude.com. In essence, Stand Up Dude is calling the American man forward to be who he's created to be by first introducing him to his creator so he can start looking more like him. Yeah. So that's what we do. In essence, it's creating opportunities for young men to find Jesus in America. So the other piece, there's 4 hats, and I'll keep number 2 and number 3 as succinct as I can. But the third one is called Change My Life. And in essence, it's a ministry also for young people, but we're mainly focusing on TikTok for Change My Life, okay? And the message that we bring there is really pretty simple. It's presenting the way, the truth, and the life. What I like to think about is that young people are looking for direction today, and that's the way. The young people are looking for something that's real. Well, that's the truth. And so we're bringing the truth, and they're looking for something meaningful with purpose. They're looking for purpose. They really, really are. And that's, Jesus says, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. So we're presenting Jesus. But here's the thing. Praise God, there's a lot of people on TikTok presenting Jesus. But what we feel called to do is actually give the young people a chance to respond to the gospel.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing on the daily. And they're responding. So you may be asking yourself, well, geez, Tim, what do you do with all these people coming to Jesus? Great question, Steve.
That was where I was going to go. Evangelism's awesome. But
yes, it is.
Discipleship needs to be
100%. I couldn't agree more. So lifesupport.chat is our premier one-stop shop, okay, is the best way to really put it, for all of our discipleship destinations, okay? So we have all forms of discipleship pieces under each ministry that fit each ministry, okay? And that will always still stay there. But the lifesupport.chat is going to be a one-stop shop that's also independent but integrated with our other ministries. Life Support, by the time this airs, it's still in formation. We still have all the discipleship pieces, but this one-stop shop piece will be, by the time this airs, should be in full operation, and that is lifesupport.chat. So what Life Support does is it offers discipleship pieces that are curated by us, as well as our original materials that we offer on our other websites. And we hope that these will impact not only the new believers within our 4 ministries, but believers seeking growth outside of our ministry. We think this might be a really great thing. So, unique to Life Support is not only the resources, okay, for the young people, but it's the 24/7 live chat that is available to young people so they can also then go and grow in their new faith in Jesus. So 24/7 life support so they can ask questions at any time, and they will be served. There'll be beautiful pieces that they can talk to a real person 24/7. Then there'll be great pieces as well, curated from our AI that we've created, that we have filled this beautiful bowl of incredible soup with all of the conservative pieces that we have collected over the last 30 years to be able to grow in Christ, and offering them to them. And then them getting live questions on the spot. How do I deal with temptation? Why do I need to go to church? Am I really saved? Why do I need to read the Bible? Do I really need to go to church? Much less even more just intricate questions that we'll be able to answer. So it's an exciting time to, like I said, I'm more excited now than I've ever been. And
I feel like you're just hitting your stride.
Yeah, me too. Oh, God.
So if any listeners are listening and they are interested in learning more, how to partner with you, all that, where do they go?
Yeah, that's easy. You go to MissionXMission.org. Mission, X like X-ray, mission.org. I should have probably said this at the very beginning, but you can go to that one website, and it's beautiful, I hope, beautiful and simple curation of each ministry that's pretty succinct, and it will tell you all about them. And you could also give if that's what's on your heart. We would love that. My dad used to say the gospel is free, but getting it out there isn't. And so, what we do, by the way, Steve, to get the message out there on the different platforms. So I should have said this as well. So we put the gospel out all across Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, and we do something called interruptive marketing. That's where instead of the road sign being along the side of the freeway, if you were in a car, we've taken that road sign and we've put it in the middle of the highway. So we've interrupted the streaming of the young people and putting the gospel right in front of them, then giving them a 24/7 chance to respond.
Yeah.
So moving that sign from the side of the highway to the middle, that's the part that costs us money to invest. And those are investment seeds in essence. By the way, you may be wondering, well, gosh, I don't know, if I gave, what kind of result might I see for that? Well, after doing this interruptive marketing now for 5 years, for every $2, literally, we are seeing that's all-in costs. That's not just advertising. That's to do everything we're doing with all 4 ministries to see a young person make a first-time commitment to follow Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. We've seen 1.6 million first-time decisions to follow Jesus since January of 2020.
Wow.
Yeah.
For business people listening, I mean, that's just like, okay, it's practical. 1.6 million for $2 a pop?
I know.
Wow.
Yeah. When he said endless opportunities, I think that right now we have endless opportunities. I feel that one day those opportunities may look different than they are right now. Here's what I mean by that. It's a wild frontier out there on the internet right now. It's more or less a wild frontier on all the social networking platforms. What I mean by wild frontier, that means we have the opportunity to share the gospel with young people. And that's what we do. There may be a day where that is no longer available. Well, praise God, God's big enough to make something else happen, and He will. Praise the Lord. But right now we do have an amazing opportunity to reach young people exactly where they are. That's on their phone. We're having a hard time getting them in the church, but we can't keep them away from being on their phone. Thus, we go to the phone. My dad always used to say that if you're a missionary and you want to evangelize the people in Africa, well, you should learn how to speak Swahili. Well, we're speaking Swahili. We're going to the countries where they're at. The countries where they're at, the island where they live, is called the internet, and we're speaking their language. And the Lord's really, really, really blessing it.
Tim Bisagno, let's get to rapid fire questions.
Oh, okay.
Rapid fire. Fire here.
So you grew up in Houston.
Yeah.
Sports teams.
Oh, easy. Houston Oilers, Houston Astros. Dad was chaplain of the Houston Oilers back in the day with Bum Phillips, Billy White Shoes Johnson, Earl Campbell, Kenny Burroughs, Mike Barber, Dan Pastorini, yeah, hold the rope years. That was my dad was the man for about those 4 years. He was the guy. I got to go to breakfast with the Oilers every home game and sit with them, watch my dad preach to the Oilers while they ate breakfast and scrambled eggs.
That's cool.
Got to sit by Earl Campbell. His thighs, by the way.
Oh, gigantic, huge, enormous.
Insane. Like I was this close looking down at those.
I think I remember seeing they were like 32 inches or 34 inches, something like that.
Of
my waist.
I asked,
my waist.
At 15 or 12, whatever I was, I touched him on the leg. How do you get pants for that? He goes, I have them made. I'm like, yeah. I'm thinking, yeah, I bet.
Well, and I assume you've probably also migrated then to the Tennessee Titans because they used to be the Houston Oilers.
Well, yes. Are we ready to move off the Oilers and go to the Astros? Or are we still?
No, let's talk NFL because the Super Bowl was yesterday.
Yes, it was. Great question. I tried. I really tried, but nope. It just needed that name, the Oilers.
Yeah.
You know what's cool is I see those shirts around that kids are wearing now, and I don't know if those are
throwbacks. Throwback jerseys.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I need to get one.
Yeah.
But I tried, so no, unfortunately. And what about Texans? Yeah, I tried, but I'm an Oiler fan. Houston Astros, grew up in the Astrodome, watching the Astros. Cesar Cedeno, Bob Watson. I got a batting lesson from Bob Watson back in the day in the Astrodome when nobody was there. This lady walked us in. My dad got us this appointment because he met Bob, and Bob said, "Can I do anything for you? I think it's amazing what you're doing over there at First Baptist." He goes, "Yeah, my son's played Little League. You can give him a batting lesson." Done.
That's awesome. That's rad.
Oh, I'm still a Houston Astros fan.
What kind of music do you love?
Oh, wow. So hardcore rock. I started playing that. I just loved the
bands.
I loved the grunt. Oh, geez. Well, secular bands. I liked Alice in Chains. I liked Love and Rockets. Not exactly hardcore. I liked Love and Rockets. I liked the Smashing Pumpkins. Those were some of my big ones. My guitarist loved Metallica. I didn't really listen to them much, but now I've listened to them, and those guys got some stuff. There's no doubt.
What about in the Christian space, in
Christian
hardcore?
Space? Oh, my word. Hold on. There's so many flying around. So on my TV show, I used to have them on there. That's what made us kind of popular because we were playing all the music that the radio wasn't playing. The only place you could hear good music back in the day that wasn't pop was on the television show. Okay, hardcore. Wow. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on all of the names of Reject All Lies. I remember that one. Jeez, I can't remember the band. Dude, I got stumped on the hardcore Christian rock bands. Wow.
Unashamed?
Unashamed, yeah, not as much though.
They're really hardcore.
Were they?
Yeah, and I freaking loved.
Really?
Strong Arm.
Strong Arm.
Stave Saker.
Stave Saker.
Stave Saker. Crucified.
Crucified. Thank you. You're on it. Stave Saker. So good. Got to interview him.
Mark's a good dude.
Yes.
Mark Solomon.
Yes.
Good dude.
Yeah, I didn't get to meet him. The Scattered Few.
Scattered?
You know Scattered Few? So I was their band pastor for a whole tour. Alan McGuire. Kill the Sox, hang up from the rafters. Okay, didn't know I'd be singing today. So, yeah, they were incredible. They were influenced by Jane's Addiction. They were highly influenced by Jane's Addiction and some ska and some punks out there, punk music. Much more, I can tell you this without stumbling around. Because I don't only like hardcore, I like all kind of stuff. Yeah. Today, my favorite two musicians are, one is Judah and the Lion, but I love Judah's stuff as a solo artist as well. It's worship with some guts on it. I like that. I don't really... Some music is... Worship music feels kind of sappy most of the time to me. But his doesn't, and I hate to say that, but I think most guys might agree. I think most of the worship music that we hear on the radio is mostly geared toward pop, and Now, this is not hardcore, Judah. Listen to that. It's amazing. The other favorite artist is Josh Garrels.
I love Josh Garrels.
Music,
Love
War and the Sea in Between.
One of the best albums
One of the
I've
best
ever heard.
Christian albums of all time.
Without question, yes.
Okay, Bruce Cockburn, Cockburn, is from Canada. Dancing in the Dragon's Jaws.
Yep.
Sounds hard. It's not. By the way, well, for our on the topic, Sin Disease by The Scattered Few is incredible. But yeah, man, Josh Garrels, songwriting,
So good.
delivery.
He's so good.
Can't say enough.
He's got such a unique voice, too.
He does. Got that little, is that Minnesota accent? What is that slight accent?
I think it's Midwest, I know.
Midwest.
And I think he currently lives in Indiana. I think that's where he grew up, was Indiana.
Okay.
And so, favorite food?
Tacos. Mexican food. Vietnamese. Yep.
Dogs, cats, neither, or both?
Oh, dogs only, please. I mean, I do have a soul. Hello.
Do you go to Vu's?
Yes.
Love that place.
Love it.
That's a local Vietnamese hangout.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
Nickname growing up?
I had two.
Okay.
One of them was banjo when I played college football at Ouachita Baptist University because my coach could not pronounce Bisagno. He thought it was Bisanjo, and then he shortened it to banjo. Then when I went to Baylor, I think I can say this. That's my nickname. You asked. My nickname was the bitch. Would you like to hear more?
Yes.
Okay. I pledged a fraternity, and for various reasons, legally speaking, I think, I had to go incognito because of my grades, and they still wanted to push me through. So I ended up not having to do a lot of the things that the other pledges had to do to get through the system. And my other pledge brothers lovingly named me the bitch because they thought I just got away with everything just because I wanted, just because I could.
That's awesome.
Bitch. Yeah, I know. There's literally Phi Delta Theta. Phi Delta. Yeah.
I was a Phi Sigma Kappa.
Oh yeah, great one. Really good.
Phi Sigma Kappa.
Yes.
Yeah. I barely got in.
You barely got in?
I'm joking. They took any warm body at my college.
Oh, that was funny.
Name 3 things that you're thankful for at this time in your life.
Oh man, health is one. Fulfillment of purpose. And it would be that it's a little bittersweet, but it's becoming incredibly sweet. I'm an empty nester now. I've got a 23 and a 26-year-old sons. And now we're empty nesters in this time of getting to know my wife again, spending some time around her, a lot of time around her, and learning how to shut my computer around 5 p.m., which is a brand new habit for me, and being present with her and letting myself enjoy this season of life that I'm in. Still pushing, but not...
In a balanced way.
Yeah, not going to bed every night with my tongue hanging out, exhausted, and just, you know that song, you know that line in the movie when that guy says, "That'll do, pig."
Yeah.
That's hard for me to do sometimes.
Yeah.
But I've accepted, like, okay, that'll do today. That's a new behavior for me. So I'm enjoying that season of my life. I'm still working on that, but I can see it coming. Yeah.
If you could be any animal, what would you be?
I think giraffes are super weird.
Have you ever fed giraffes at a zoo?
Yes.
It's so fun.
Yes.
It's so cool.
Their tongues are like 5 feet long.
Yeah, they're crazy.
I think that's such an odd animal. Lion's kind of cool.
Okay, so this is slightly inappropriate, but I just saw a meme on Instagram, I think it was, or it was a little video. Male giraffes,
I know where this is maybe going.
when they're in the mood,
Yeah.
they will whack the females in their bladder to get them to pee, smell the pee to see if they're ovulating.
Cool. They whack them with their head, don't they? Or do they whack them with their...
Yeah, with their head.
Yeah,
with their
okay.
head. They whack them with their head until they pee,
That's
and then
what they use. They use their
That's
head
crazy.
like
That's
a weapon.
weird. That's so weird.
That is to literally make them pee.
That's so weird.
That is
But it's so
weird.
funny. Are you an early
I love
riser?
it.
A night?
Oh, that's a great question.
Night
How many
owl?
more we got? Because I kind of
We got a
like
handful.
these.
We got a handful.
Oh, good. I
We got a
like.
handful.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay. I have become an early riser.
Yeah.
Only, though, in the last year and a half.
Yeah.
Early for me is I've been getting up at 6:15.
Yeah.
For years, I got up about 8:15, but it was also because I was working till 11:15. So recently, I have been gifted a gift by our chairman of the board that was working on me. So, hey, Tim, when he first came on, tell me how many hours you work a day. He's just asking general questions. And I told him, and he did the math, and it was 12 to 14. I've been doing that since I started. Just the way it is. And he's like, you're how old? And I tell him, he goes, okay, that changes today, Tim. And so instead of a chairman of the board going, you need to work harder, he goes, that stops. And so he gave me a beautiful gift. I know that this is audio only, but just imagine when you're sitting there at your laptop, okay? And now you reach up to the top of the laptop because your work is done, and you bring that laptop to a close, and now you've closed the lid. That's what he did for me on Zoom. He said, Timmy, he calls me Timmy when he's really wanting me to listen. It's a loving term. I said, I don't know how. I don't know how to stop it at 5. He goes, want me to show you? I'm like, yeah. We're on Zoom. He grabs the top of his make-believe laptop and he closes it. And that's all I need. He goes, that's what you do at 5. I'm like, so I started closing it at 6. Then I started closing it at 5:30. Then I started closing it at 5. Occasionally I close it at 4:30 so I can be at Holy Smokes on time before y'all shut down at 6. But that's been a gift. What was the question? Jeez, that was
Early
long.
riser, night owl, or pretty normal.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So have become an early riser.
If you could live anywhere, where would that be?
Colorado. Mm-hmm. Love it. Minturn
Next time you're out there. You got to come out for the conclave.
For the who?
The conclave.
Yes.
Once a year, Holy Smokes annual gathering in Colorado Springs, or it's Colorado, on the Front Range.
What month?
It's kind of bounced around between July, August, and September.
Okay.
Last year, in 2024 was in July. The year before that, in 23, it was in September, and the 2 years prior, it was in August.
Okay.
In August. And
well, that place just feels...
And what it is, the conclave, we have people coming from all around the nation, and there are events. It used to be, when it started, it was Friday afternoon, evening, all day Saturday, and then a Sunday morning. And it's Matt Hurd, local pastor to massive church in Orlando, was second. Yeah, Matt's an amazing human being. Really close friends with Kay and I, and just an amazing human being. He gives the Sunday message.
Okay.
And in fact, if you go on the podcast feed, and if listeners are listening, you can go back and you can find that Matt Hurd message that we published probably I want to say in September, maybe August is when we actually published it. And he just gives this message, and we have communion together, and it's beautiful. And the entire time we're having cigars, and we're bouncing around different locations along the Front Range. You know, we might be at Wayne's house, and he's got an indoor lounge, and we'll be outside if the weather's beautiful, and
the Front Range.
Be over it. Yeah,
what's that?
The Front Range. It's the Front Range of the mountains.
Oh,
yeah. It's what we call the area, basically between Fort Collins and maybe Pueblo. It's called the Front Range. It's all the mountains that these cities, Colorado Springs, Castle Rock, Monument, etc. We're all, and so we'll, Friday night, a couple places, Saturdays, 3 different places, and then Sunday morning. And it started so that people that come in early.
How do you get around? You got a van?
Huh?
How do you get around to the spots? You fly in?
No, people have rented cars. You hitch rides with people.
Okay.
There are people that be like, hey, I've got an extra room. Come stay with me.
Yeah.
So it's awesome. Come to the conclave, because if you love Colorado.
I do.
And if you come out early, every Wednesday is Holy Smokes with Megan and Etienne at their place. And so it started to be a conclave, almost extended weekend, where Wednesday night we have an event. Thursday, there's usually some stuff going on. We have a Thursday night event. The conclave officially kicks off on Friday night.
So come early. I like.
Yeah. Colorado.
Yeah, something special.
We got you. We got you.
It feels, thanks. It feels.
I'll take you on a couple hikes.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's your greatest strength and what's your greatest weakness?
Oh. I think my greatest strength is when I operate from my heart, and I share that and live in that without a filter, in front of other people, in front of my wife, in front of my kids, in front of my friends, in front of people that need me, in front of people that need Jesus, without words. So that's my official answer on my greatest strength. I have a part B, and it answers into your other question of what's your greatest weakness. Part B would be my ADD spirit that can be my greatest blessing. It allows me to run, I called it 4 ministries, but at the end of the day, it's 6. Really, it's just like TMI to talk about. But, I can do it and I love it. So there's the piece of gifts that come with being able to do several things at once without overwhelm. And the greatest weakness is sometimes it can cause confusion. Sometimes it can cause overwhelm. And sometimes it can cause even shame. And so for me to ride that wild stallion of ADD and to know that there's always the other one trying to maybe chase me down, to keep rolling and operating in the true gifts that come from that.
Who's been the greatest influence in your life?
Oh, it's my dad. I guess it's just those 2 words, my dad.
Yeah.
I think for those that heard the interview would catch that pretty clear.
Who's the first person you think of when you hear the word successful? I would assume probably your dad.
Yeah, it is. You know what I think about that? It's not the success on paper.
Not the 22,000 people that went.
Not at all. The 44 books, the 3 doctorates. It's that he did all of that while still holding presence.
Ooh, that's so good. That's so good.
Yes, he did it.
Yeah.
He never seemed depressed. He never seemed overwhelmed. He never seemed to be thinking about all of this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know how he did it.
Yeah.
When you're talking to him, he just wants to have fun.
That's awesome. I look forward to meeting him one day.
Oh, you will.
The other side.
He'll be there. He'll be there.
Hop on some dirt bikes.
Yeah, dude. One of his favorite things is he did it when I was a kid. He'd get down on one knee and he'd see me running as a little kid from across the room. He'd go, "Come on, Tim. Come on, Tim." He would do the same thing at the track meets in high school. "Come on, Tim." Same things at Ouachita Baptist playing football. "Come on, Tim." And I just know that one day when I get there, he's going to be saying, "Come on, Tim." And so just watch for that. I'll be the one sprinting and he'll be the one running my way.
That's cool. What do you do for self-care, to rest, to recharge?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. I do several things. For one, I have a lot of hobbies. I think hobbies are very, very important. I meet some tremendous men that are highly successful, and they kind of always want to talk about that. And then after I let them do their thing, I'm like, well, what do you like doing? Because that's the real heart of the matter. That's the guy I want to talk to right now. And they're like, well, I don't really have any hobbies. Oh, man, my heart breaks. I read. I'm like, okay, well, all right.
It's probably all business books.
As a matter of fact, it is. Both of the 2 people that are in my mind, very, very clear right now, they have 2 to 3 books running at all times. And they have a ferocious appetite for that. And that's great. But I'm an archer. I'm an avid archer. I ride my motorcycle every chance I get with other men. Those are some great hobbies. I do self-care like that. I work out 3 times a week. People that like to work out, I think, are insane. I work out not because I like working out. I work out because I like the results. I like
feel better.
The peace of mind that it gives me. I like to be able to get up out of a chair without grunting at 62. I like feeling still alive. I feel like if I needed to be called into action, I could still do it to my best of my ability. So those are some self-care things that I do. I set aside time in the morning to spend time in the Word. I call that self-care. If I'm going to go out and help other people, if I'm an empty vessel, I've been doing it so long, I could probably do it for a minute. but it just no heart connection. And when you have that heart connection, when you connect with the Holy Spirit in His Word and let Him speak to you, I have learned later in life now that it's not about the amount of chapters that you read. Sometimes I can only get about maybe a couple paragraphs in, and I have to start underlining, and I'll start thinking about that, and I'll let the Holy Spirit speak. And so I used to read the Bible through once a year, different translations, the 1 year Bible. Those are fantastic. Fantastic. Do it. I like to change up translations to keep it interesting.
Yep.
Make you re-own it. Mm-hmm. But lately, it's been taking 2 to 3 years per Bible to read because I'm taking it nice and slow. Mm-hmm. So I do that now.
Nice.
Pet my dog. Self-care.
What kind of dog?
She's a mix. We got her at the shelter. She's a mixture between a bulldog and a pit bull and a Stafford Terrier, which I think is just another word for pit bull anyway. Her name is Darla, and she's the cutest. And what I love about her so much is that she loves my wife more than me, which is really great because we had a pit bull before that. And that dog liked me more than her, and I just love that Darla loves Edie, my wife.
Yeah.
So.
Nice.
Lastly, maybe, I love watching movies with my wife. In our bed, we prop up pillows, and we used to not start it till 11 o'clock at night because I was working too darn late, and now we'll start it sooner, and just that special time. And then that's if you call that self-care, it's just...
Very much so.
Yeah, okay. So... those are my favorite self-cares. And
nice. Final 3 questions.
Okay.
What does Holy Smokes mean to you, and how has it contributed to your spiritual journey?
Oh. So I think I want to start this by telling you a quote that I heard somebody say to me about a week ago. They said, "What's the deal with these dudes hanging out with dudes so much in this town?" The person that had said that was from California, and their husband had discovered Holy Smokes. And I'm not saying that wasn't happening in California, but I'm thanking God that people are doing that here. I also thank God that Holy Smokes is not the only place that men gather in this town, but it's definitely, from what I can tell and what I've experienced, because I've been here 21 years, that it's the most laid back gathering. Yet, it's also what's kind of weird, it's also the most widely known outside of this town and state and even country. So how can it be laid back and yet it's super well known? Well, I just really think that speaks to the loudest, to the indescribableness of the specialness, really, of these gatherings called Holy Smokes. You can't really create things like what I just described on spreadsheets, but I feel that the Holy Spirit has done that, and I do mean that. What really makes it so great, I think, is no matter what group meets where, you can know that it's going to be a great hang, really, every single time with like-hearted men. Not necessarily always like-minded, sure, but like-hearted men that love being there as much as you do. Mm-hmm. And it just happens to be that those men love Jesus too, which is pretty great. I think it's great when women get together, right? That when they get together, I've heard they kind of let their hair down. I think that's great. I think it's important. And I think that they should do that. But I also just really am grateful for Holy Smokes because it's a place where men can come and a place where they can let their guard down. And I think that we don't get very many opportunities as men to let our guard down. And it's just that kind of in place. And it's important to me every chance I get to be there. That's a little bit, again, for that self-care. And I'm really grateful that this place has been created for that for me.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. If you could have a holy smoke with any 3 people throughout history, living or deceased, who would they be? Can't name Jesus.
Okay, I think, was it Churchill that said, how do you know when you're smoking too much? And his answer was, when I have 2 lit at the same time.
Both. I think Churchill said it, but Twain said something very similar.
Okay, 2 with 1 stone then. I'll meet those two guys. No, let's group them in together.
Mark Twain is one of my three.
Okay. Really, that's super cool. You may be very surprised at this answer. I may get blackballed for this one, but I actually think that Joel Osteen is amazing. I know, a little bit out of the, you maybe didn't expect me to say that. I've met him 4 times, and he said, Tim, how you doing? How's the ministry? All 4 times. I'm like, what? Now, my last name doesn't hurt any, being Bisagno, and his dad knew my dad.
Yeah.
But dude, when you talk to him, in spite of all I have 2 things to say about him. One is, in spite of all the things that you may like or not like about Joel, if you talk to him in a crowded room,
You were the only person
You're the
there.
only person in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only person in the whole room.
Yep.
And I think that is so special of a characteristics about a person who's responsible and so genius at doing so many of the things that he does, yet he's completely right there. So I don't know what the other piece was there, but I think him being a preacher's kid, there's also that big piece.
You both grew up in the Houston area,
both grew up in the
kids,
Houston area.
big churches, well-known pastors, pillars of the community.
Yeah.
There's, I'm sure, a lot of that kind of connection between the two of you.
The other person would be Billy Graham.
Yeah.
Just the magnificence of the simplicity, yet the powerfulness that he presented the gospel. I just want to be in the same room with that. So it's amazing. So one day.
Yeah. All right, last question. We're meeting 1 year from today, and I got a bottle of your favorite celebratory drink. What are we celebrating?
We're celebrating that God did magnificently, that the gifts that he has promised, the gifts that he has pushed me to believe for, all came true in spite of any of my efforts. I just want to look back and know that God did it.
You were just a vessel.
I was just a vessel. I would love that.
Yeah.
That's the celebration that I want to sit down in a year and go, dude, I had nothing to do with me. This happened, and this happened, and this happened, and God did it all. I would love that. I would love that.
Tim Bisagno, let's see it happen 1 year from today. Thanks for being on the Holy Smokes podcast, my man.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Hey everyone, I wanted to announce that we have Holy Smokes gear. That's right, we have swag. We currently have hats, shirts, stickers like for your vehicle or your travel humidor, magnets, even branded bourbon glasses for a limited time. Go to holysmokes.club and click on the shop tab. That's holysmokes.club. I'm super proud of the shirts. They're made with Bella canvas shirts that are soft and incredibly comfortable. The hats fit wonderfully, which can be a problem for those of us with big noggins. We plan on having a lot more to offer, like Guayabera shirts, additional t-shirt designs, beanies, polos, hoodies, cigar accessories, and much more. Check it out. And even if you don't make a purchase now, be sure to sign up for that email list, as I've thrown a couple big discount coupon codes for those exclusively on that list. So click the shop tab at holysmokes.club. Thanks.